This here is Tom Reed, best known as Chosen One. He's very smart, big-hearted, friendly, and handsome. This is my interview with him. Okay, Tom, how did you choose your YouTube name, Chosen One?
Well, when I first signed up for a YouTube channel, I was just kind of dinking around, and I think that was 2007. And at the time, you had to have a Gmail email address, and I didn't have one. So I set up a Gmail address, and then I used an old name that was PI Chicago, because I was doing investigative work in Chicago. And then I switched back to the Gmail address, and then YouTube was kind of leaning on people to come up with a channel name. They didn't want email addresses, they wanted channel names, because I guess they knew what they were going to eventually do with their format. So I just got done watching a documentary on LeBron James, and I've always played a ton of basketball, and you know, he calls himself the Chosen One. Well, I just clicked in like Chosen because it picks the names for you, because I didn't really have a name. At the time, I never thought I'd have a bunch of people, you know, have an interest in what I like. I was basically just uploading my videos to YouTube for my own use and to show friends and that kind of thing. So I typed in Chosen, and then One came up. Well, if it's spelled one, it's like wanting a, you know, you won a race or you won the lottery. It has nothing to do with religion. So I thought it was just kind of different, and I just picked Chosen One, and I just kind of kept it, and that satisfied the requirement of a channel name, and I just kept it. I couldn't continue to use PI Chicago because I knew I was getting out of there.
How old are you, and what's your birth date?
I'm 63, and my birthday's January 4th, 1956.
Married, children, or a girlfriend?
I'm married. I've been separated from my wife for about 21 years. She lives with her boyfriend down in Florida.
What city?
And I don't have a girlfriend. No,
Oh, okay. You don't want one?
No.
Yeah, they're trouble, aren't they?
Yeah.
What city did you grow up in?
Flat Rock, Michigan, which is, you know, south of Detroit. Not far from here, actually.
What's your most memorable childhood memory?
I can remember a day of the year, there was a girl that lived down the street. Their last name was Moser, and her name was Susan. She was a grade behind me, and her mother and my mother would let us skip a day of school, and they'd take us down to J.L. Hudson's. And I can remember going down there and buying rock candy, and it was just so fun to be like skipping school, and then I looked forward to that rock candy so much.
What about grades in school? What kind of grades did you get?
Terrible. I barely got in and out of anywhere. Actually, they tried to hold me back a couple times, but they knew I threatened to run away, and they must have bought into it. And then I wouldn't have graduated from high school, but my mother was on the council in town, and basically she had a conversation with the government teacher, and they thought it'd be better off if they graduated me than I. It didn't really matter. If I'd have thought back then a little more carefully, I probably should have quit high school and got a GED, because I knew I'd end up going to college eventually anyway, and really, I think high school was a complete and total waste of time for me.
Alrighty. What were your interests before YouTube?
I've been a pilot for, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. I always was into kickboxing, boxing, played a ton of basketball. You know, now I like mixed martial arts. That wasn't around then. I never really cared for wrestling. And I was always a big wildlife nut. You know, I liked nature a lot. I liked photography. I always had an interest in that. So I had motorcycles, but I had a couple of friends get killed. That was the end of that.
You mentioned something about flying. Did you get your pilot license?
Yeah, I've had that in like, I don't know, probably 35 years.
What'd you do after? Where'd you go to college?
Eastern. Well, I went to a junior college at first, Monroe Community College down in Monroe, and I went there a year, and then I took a year off and ended up transferring to Eastern Michigan University, and I graduated from there with a degree in criminal justice.
Oh, how long have you done criminal justice or private eye?
I was a private eye shortly after I graduated. I didn't graduate until I think I was 23. Then I worked for a place for about 6 months. And then you had to be 25. And then I worked, well, I guess it was longer than that. I guess it was about a year. In Michigan, you had to be 25 at the time to get a PI license. And I qualified because I had a degree. And I turned in an application to security at General Motors, which was a salary job. It was a good job. I mean, I made $35,000 a year in 1980. and I got hired on the midnight shift, and then in the daytime I'd just go bang on doors to try and get clients.
What was your most memorable case? Worse, the best and worst.
Probably Margaret Eby, the Flint professor that was murdered. That show's been on Forensic Files and Unsolved Mysteries and everything else.
Okay. Do you want to talk about depression or no?
I mean, I've definitely had a difficult time with depression. It ran in the family. My parents were both big drinkers. I was never really a drinker. I've never tried marijuana. It just didn't really interest me. No illegal drugs. I mean, that's not my claim to fame. It just didn't really interest me. Yeah, I've had a big problem with depression now, ever since a kid, really, but it seemed to be doing pretty good right now.
You stopped taking all medicine for depression?
Yeah, I do take some Remeron at night because I just can't seem to get to sleep without it.
How and when did you get Daisy?
Well, I had an older neighbor that lived a couple doors down from me, and she was by herself a lot, and they decided to get her a dog, so they found some people that were had got a dog from a rescue that they didn't want anymore, and they wanted $25 because they had bought a leash and a bowl and all that kind of stuff. So she got I took her to, in a blizzard actually, up to Gaylord, and it was snowing like hell. I remember a guy with a trailer full of snowmobiles spun out in front of us, and it spun around, the door came open, 2 of the snowmobiles flew out. And we went up, and there was a family in like kind of an older vehicle, and they had Daisy, and they kind of handed it to the lady, and I told her, keep your face away from that dog. And Daisy acted like she was going to bite, even though she was just a little puppy. And we stopped at a place in St. Helen to get something to eat. When I came back, Daisy had got out of the cage, and she tried to bite me. And she peed all over the seat, and actually I forced her in the cage with a plastic snow shovel. She was biting it. So then when we got it to her house, I warned that lady. I said, don't you be trying to like pet this dog. And she couldn't pet it for like a week, and then it peed on the floor one time, and she smacked it, and Daisy bit her twice, and then bit her as she was running away in the calf. So things got better. I eventually went to Home Depot and got a pair of welding gloves, and just spent about 2 weeks slowly petting Daisy, and you know, she finally got to where I could take the gloves off, and then she was friendly with me, then she was friendly with her. Well, long story short, she had to go to an assisted living care facility, and her daughter didn't want her, so you know, I got off her. I didn't really want a dog at the time, but I took her because I just didn't want her going to another home. She used to the lady used to let her outside, and she'd come down and scratch on my door. I spent a lot of time with her. I took her, it's kind of what I do now, I took her to parks. And so Daisy spent as much time with me as she did with the owner.
Okay. You mentioned other pets, like your greyhounds. I saw.
Yeah, I had a couple miniature greyhounds. I had a lot of pit bulls. Actually, we're in Dearborn now. I went to war with Dearborn in court back in the 80s over a couple pit bulls. I ended up suing them and my neighbors and the police and anybody else that got my way, because they were just the sweetest dogs with Dearborn, like they've done with other things in the past. We're going to have it their way, and they eventually lost.
What inspired you to interview the women of Detroit and Delray?
Well, I had always, you know, when I was around, even when I didn't live in Michigan, lived in Florida and Chicago, I'd come back to Detroit and I'd drive around, take photos and that kind of thing. And I would see the women walking the streets a lot. And really, I think what got me interested is I would see them buy like hot dogs for stray cats and bread for birds. And then I'd watch them get in a car with a John and just struck up a conversation with them one time over their interest in being kind to animals.
What is your favorite food?
I say crab legs. King crab legs, do not.
How about your favorite restaurant? Do you have a favorite?
I like that Mia Pueblo restaurant down on Dick's in Detroit, I think, that Mexican restaurant.
How about the best place you ever lived and worst place?
Best place I ever lived was probably, that's a good question. I'd say Dearborn, really, other than them hassling me over a couple pit bulls. The worst place, Florida. Every single square inch of it.
How about a movie Your favorite movie?
Shining, I would say The Shining, or No Country for Old Men.
How about when you were little? What favorite cartoon did you like to watch?
Sky King, because it was cartoons, guys that were flying airplanes.
What is your favorite musical group? Or music group?
I say Led Zeppelin.
What is the hardest lesson you ever learned so far in life?
Hardest lesson I ever learned. Let's see, what is that hardest lesson? I don't know, don't get married.
Yeah, that would be mine. What is the one thing you did that you really wish you could go back and undo?
I think I would have pulled over sooner before the cops ran me off the road in Gaylord.
What do you most often look down on people for?
I really don't look down on people. I don't. I don't. I think, people are interesting, and I really don't. I'm really not that way.
What is your meaning of friendship? And you said before that you would cut the ties with somebody that left a rude comment on one of your videos,
Yeah.
or BS, you will take to unfriend them.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I mean, look, this is a channel that I started of the interests that I have. And, when you're living next to some jerk off and you don't get along with him, you still try and get along with him because he's your neighbor. When you work at a place and you have a job, there's always someone there you don't get along with, and you kind of got to get along with them, or they're going to get rid of them, or they're going to get rid of you. But when I'm doing something for recreation, and it's a channel that I started, I'm not putting up with anything. They leave a comment I don't like, or they're causing trouble, or they're talking down to the women I interview, they're gone.
Okay, that takes me to my next question.
Okay.
We had a disagreement out there one time. What made you stay friends with me because of all the BS that I was giving you, a hard time I was giving you? What was different?
I just thought you were crazy. I thought you were mixed up, really didn't know what you were talking about.
Like now, right?
Yeah.
What random compliment that someone gave you that you really stuck in your memory?
I can't think of one.
What are you most unsure about?
Nothing, really.
Okay. What's the best part of your day?
Late night.
What small gesture from a stranger made a big impact on you?
A stranger? I can't think of one.
What's the dumbest thing you ever done that turned out pretty well?
Went to college.
What personality trait do you value most or dislike?
Gossip.
What keeps you up at night most often?
Pornhub.
What lie do you tell most often?
I'll call you later.
What is the best thing about you?
Jeez, I don't know. Ask Daisy. I take good care of my dog.
That's a good one. Most interesting friend?
My most interesting ones have died. But I'd say of the living, probably Mark Iden, a buddy of mine up in Traverse City.
How many YouTubers have you met?
You're the third.
Tell us about each one that you met.
I met Mark. He's a good guy. He lives in Detroit. We got a lot of common interest. We share articles back and forth. And I met you. And I met that guy from Flint for a taco one time. That's it, I think.
What most memorable gift you received?
I had a priest buddy of mine. Believe it or not, my best friend was a priest in Chicago. We hung around all the time, and he gave me a paperweight before he died. He got lung cancer that was given to him when he was ordained. I'd say that's something that I, kind of take extra good care of, and I'll make sure I won't lose.
The most heartwarming thing you ever saw?
Heartwarming thing? I would say watching these women working the streets feed stray animals. And then they get in the car with like a John. It was like just kind of cool to see them have that sensitivity with animals, but yet be working that hardcore street and get in a car with a stranger like it was nothing. I mean, it's like turning on and turning off like emotions.
Your most proudest moment?
I think when I got my pilot's license, probably.
The hardest lesson you ever learned?
Hardest lesson I ever learned. Probably sticking out high school when I should have quit. It's a big waste of time.
What's the 3 most interesting facts about you?
Oh, God. I don't know about that. I don't think I ever can think any. I mean, I got a Nikon camera, a Sony video recorder, and Daisy.
Oh yeah, I want to also thank you for giving me this camcorder that I'm doing this video on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What is your most common first thought when you wake up?
I'm going to go to Tim Hortons and get a coffee.
When or where are you going to move to?
I was thinking about going down to Atlanta. Now I'm thinking about maybe going to Hilton Head, South Carolina, or maybe down here. It's kind of up in the air.
When you plan on moving?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was thinking this fall, but I don't think that's going to happen now. Because I sold a big collection to a guy, and he hasn't picked it up yet, and that's one staple in getting my house emptied.
Mm-hmm.
So until that happens, it's hard to go to step 2.
I see. How did you come up there to West Branch?
I had a sister up there that was having some problems with some restaurant she owned, and a kid that's a spoiled brat.
Were you planning on staying up at West Branch very long?
No.
Was it just temporarily?
Yeah, I thought I'd go up there for a couple of years or something, Kind of wanted to get out of downtown Chicago, and I just thought I'd try that for a while, help her out.
How'd you like Chicago?
It's good. Lived downtown for 12 or 13 years. It's a good experience. I don't miss it, though.
Apartment or condo or what?
I had a condo, yeah.
You like condos?
I do. You don't have to do any of that stuff outside. I hate that kind of thing.
Okay, I can't think of anything more else to ask you.
All right.
Okay, thanks guys for watching. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, appreciate it.
For this.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.